Is also what we're going to talk about today, Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And I welcome into the program Hannah Anderson. Hannah, thank you for joining me today. How are you? Hello, Hannah?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi, there we go.
We got you now. Hannah Anderson
Awesome.
is joining us today as we delve into Eating Disorder Awareness Week and some of the different eating disorders there are. I think we know anorexia and some of the other ones. This one is interesting for me, and it is, I was looking into this and we're having you on, the fear of vomiting. And I'm going to have to ask you to help me with this name.
Yeah, so it's emetophobia.
Emetophobia.
Yes.
And that is the fear of vomiting.
Yes, it is. It's quite an intense one for some people at that. So
I can imagine. So can you just maybe explain to us what exactly it is overall?
Yeah, for sure. So it's not exactly just vomiting yourself. It has everything to do with the entirety of vomit. So if somebody else vomits, if you vomit, for me personally, if I get a stomach ache, I start to get worried, or if someone coughs too hard around me, like I am constantly in fear of that, and I live in constant fear of that, and it affects more people than we realize, I think. So, yeah, it's a big thing in my life for sure. It takes over a lot of my day-to-day eating habits and stuff because, you know, if I get a stomach ache, I will purposely not eat because I'm just so terrified that maybe what happens if I throw up, and then I go into that anxiety spiral.
So, and I would imagine that, like I'm a person that I like, and I'm not, I don't know how to explain this politely, but I don't seem to vomit for decades, even when I'm ill or things like that. So this is, interesting to me because like you said, it's more common than not. Is that fear sort of like an anxiety, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say it's more of an anxiety because, you know, you get into your own head about it. Even if it doesn't happen, just the thought of what if is kind of the biggest thing, I think, for a lot of people. And that just goes for anxiety in general, is just the fear of what if. So, yeah, for people with emetophobia, it's just living in constant fear. Like somebody could literally just vomit right beside me right now. What if they did? What if they didn't? How am I going to handle that situation? You know, going to hospitals, you have to go to a walk-in clinic. What if someone's sick right beside me? How am I going to handle that? Like you constantly are terrified in public, and, you know, sometimes even if in your own house, if you have a family member that is got the stomach flu, you know, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and along those ways, I wonder, like, so can I ask you what happens when you do actually vomit, or do you?
I cry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I tend to stay away from anything that could make me vomit. So, you know, I'm 20 years old, obviously, like I, you know, go out with my friends and, you know, we go to bars and stuff like that, but I will never push myself excessively to the point of some people because I don't want to be in the position where I could possibly potentially throw up. And I also make sure that the people around me, when we're in situations like that, I also make sure that they're not pushing themselves either, because it just protects my own anxiety. And it's selfish, but, you know, I'd rather protect myself than have to have an anxiety attack in the middle of a bar, you know?
Well, and that's interesting that you call it selfish. I don't consider that selfish at all, but I can understand I'm not in your position, and that's how you view it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do feel bad because people that know me know that, like, if somebody even has, like, you know, I can always tell. I've kind of like a sixth sense for when somebody is going to vomit. So, like, if I'm out drinking with my friends, I'm constantly just on hyper awareness mode, just watching, you know, people around me and making sure that I'm removing myself from the room if I do feel like someone is going to potentially throw up. So
when did you know, Hannah, you first had this? Because you call it selfish, and I just think you're very, especially forgive me for being 20. I don't want to label you, you know, but that's very mature of you. It just seems that, like, you've discovered this, and it's kind of like you take a lot of precautions to just prevent some things. And I don't think that's selfish at all. I think that's very self-aware.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've known for quite a while. My mother actually has a bit of emetophobia, or did before she had 3 kids that loved to get the stomach flu. But growing up, I think I realized around like age 10 is when I kind of got to get a little bit more frightened towards it. And like, I think that it may be a little bit genetic because, you know, my mom, when one of her kids would get sick, she would also get sick just because of, not because she had the virus, but just because she was anxious. And so maybe I think, not putting it on her, but I think that I kind of developed a fear because whenever I got sick, it was like getting my mom sick too. And so it scared me a little bit. And then after that, there was an incident when I was in elementary school where someone just got up and vomited on the floor. And I remember being so terrified that I literally couldn't leave the classroom until they cleaned it up. Like, I sat in the corner and I was just absolutely, utterly terrified and frozen.
That sounds so sad for you. That it would be fear. I'm trying to understand this, and I just have sympathy for you. So I really appreciate you sharing this story, because I think there's a lot of people out there that would be fascinated by this, but also I think you're going to help a lot of people. So I'll start there. Is there a lot of support out there for this type of disorder?
I would say there is and there isn't. I think it's a very hit and miss kind of phobia, because when you look at phobias themselves, there's so many that are so put to light in media. Like, everybody knows what arachnophobia is, or not. If not everybody, most people. The fear of spiders. That's a very, very common phobia to have. But when you look at emetophobia, some people don't even know that it would be considered a phobia. Some people think they're just simply afraid of throwing up and they don't like it. But it can come down to an actual very valid phobia. And I don't think it's talked about enough, in media and anything like that, because before I actually took myself to Google and made myself research if it was a phobia, I just thought that I was afraid of vomit. I just thought that I just panicked when I was around it. I didn't think that a lot of other people had it. But, there is way more people than I thought that have emetophobia. So,
well, that's good that there's support and community out there as well. And like, I'm thinking of you in your elementary situation that, other kids in elementary wouldn't understand why you were so afraid of it. And you yourself probably at the time didn't understand.
No, for sure. I actually did have one of my friends in elementary school, and to this day, she actually, as far as I know, she still has emetophobia. But it was me and her, and we were just terrified of vomit. And I remember she was in my classroom the day that happened, and we both were in the corner, not leaving the classroom until it was cleaned up. So yeah, like, it's more common than people think. I think that it just needs to be brought to light more, because I didn't think it had a name at all. Oh, yeah.
I understand that. I'm learning so much here myself right now. What are the challenges of people being diagnosed with this?
Well,
some are probably obvious, but there's probably some other ones as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, it ties into eating disorders quite heavily, because if you're afraid of vomiting, and you are like me and you're so anxious to the point where when you get a stomach ache, you start to freak out. Eating almost anything can be a little terrifying, because there's always, again, that sense of what if, like you eat something wrong and your stomach starts to feel funny and your brain immediately sends you down that anxiety spiral and you start to, put yourself into that panic mode. So it can actually bring on eating disorders. And I'm not a professional, obviously, but in my personal experience, I know that it did, progress me to have some symptoms of eating disorders and definitely show signs of that as well.
What is a message to parents whose kids are diagnosed with this? And, like a lot of parents might say, no one likes throwing up, or just it's okay to throw up, and not understanding that this is an actual, phobia.
Yeah. Everybody that I tell, one of their favorite things to say is, well, nobody likes throwing up. I'm like, no, but that's not it. But no, yeah, I would say, to parents, I would say take it to Google, look up, some of the things that people have to say about this phobia, the way that it makes them feel, how it can deter them from eating, how intense it is for them to have it, and how much anxiety it brings on into day-to-day life. I would say, just try and get as educated as you can. And then that goes the same for, almost everything in our day and age here. Any diagnostic, you want to get as informed as you can, especially if it's your kid in that situation, so that you can be, that supportive parent that you need to be in that situation.
And is that what you want Manitobans to get out of this week? As we discuss Eating Disorder Awareness Week, specifically with this one, is just the understanding of it, that it does exist, and maybe helping. Like, what would you like to help Manitobans with helping share this knowledge today?
I just want people to not dismiss don't dismiss it anymore, because eating disorders in general are just very dismissed and minimalized by a lot of people because they're just uneducated. And so I'm hoping that, me sharing this and the rest of this week as well, it just takes this information and puts it into perspective for people that this is a very real thing that is quite harmful to so many people's lives. And it is so very important to stay educated on every single topic in our day and age now, but also ones that are as important as this.
Hannah, this has been a great discussion. I can't thank you enough for sharing this and going through it. I would imagine at a point in your life, your young life, that you've become comfortable with understanding this. But I also imagine there was probably some tough times with this too. So I think you're doing a really good thing today by sharing this information.
Well, thank you so much for having me again. I appreciate getting to talk about it even just a little bit. So thank you so much. Thanks.
Hannah Anderson talking about emetophobia, which is an anxiety disorder of the fear of vomiting. And Hannah, if you're still there, the great part about you aware of yourself and aware of this and not pushing yourself when you go out with friends is you'll never spend too much money on alcohol that way.
You are very correct.
You'll never wake up and go, oh, I shouldn't have spent all that money.
You're very correct. Yeah.
So take the positivity as well. Hannah, thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much.
Hannah Anderson. You can let us know on the text line if you ever heard of that. I had not, and I really appreciate her sharing that information and the knowledge on emetophobia, the Eating Disorder Awareness Week, as we continue on here on the Jim Toth Show on 680 CJOB.